The Jayhawks win the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, upsetting or defeating UNLV, I should say, 49-36. We've got a full in-depth recap of the game for you tonight. Doing this as a live. Hopefully this works out. Technology's being a little iffy, so we'll try and get through this. But let's get going.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into the KC Sports Authority podcast live edition here on YouTube right now. And we are here to talk the KU football bowl game victory with all of you Jayhawk fans. And we'll give it a few minutes here before we get going just to get some more people on. If you are watching and this is your first time joining us, thank you so much. We're excited to have you. Hit that subscribe button for us real quick right there on the screen as we continue to deliver some good content to you guys and continue to build this YouTube page up. We've got a lot of fun stuff ahead and would love for you guys to continue joining us for that. You can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. And if I could get technology to work, we'll have that here momentarily. There we go. All right, it's going. Oh, maybe. Technology's been a pain. This is why we don't go live that often. But we're excited to go live. Keegan, JB here. We also got Derek Ho joining us again. We're going to get into this here in just a second. Those of you that do come across this watching live, feel free to leave your comments here on YouTube, and we'll bring up a couple of them. If you guys have any questions or just moments from the game that stand out to you, feel free to drop them in the comment section. We'd love to jump in with it. But all right, guys, let's get going. We got a few people on here. And of course, if you're not watching live, I will have this later for you in podcast form on our YouTube page. You can go back and watch this later. But let's get into it, fellas. This was I don't even know what word to use to describe. Last year, I talked about the bowl game was just a wild thriller, the shootout, the multiple overtime shootout that we ended up losing. But this year, another, I guess, thriller, wild game here, that bizarre game, weird game. I don't even know where to begin with this, but KU does come out on top 49-36, winning the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. This is their first bowl victory since 2008 and seventh in program history. KU was the heavy favorite coming into the day with a couple line changes here and there, but an all-around insane game, a game that felt like it went on for 8 hours, and of course, we're going to get into why. But, man, where do you guys want to start with this? Do we start with the ref show? Do we start with the Vegas trying to keep it close? Where do we begin? Dude, JB, I'm going to kick it to you.
Dude, all right, I don't know if anyone had the over-under at 5 minutes to mention the word flag, but flag. Got it on the under. I could see the timer in the corner. Flag, non-stop. It was, I mean, look, I know as fans, when you watch a game like that, regardless of whether you're a KU fan or you're a Mizzou fan or you're a Tennessee fan, whatever, doesn't matter. You watch a game, and there's flags that are flying, and you run to Twitter, and it's, gosh, the flag this, flag that, oh, these refs this, these refs that. I dare anybody who generally has criticism against those people that complain about the flags. If you complain about the flags and you're getting, flack for it on Twitter, go tell that person to watch the game. You can't watch that game. I mean, that game was borderline unwatchable for a vast majority. I think it was the second quarter where probably the most flags were thrown. I'd have to fact check myself on that, but I mean, you guys, how many yards was it? 216?
Over something about that.
Yeah,
I think KU had 18 penalties in total. It was the most penalized bowl game, I think, ever. It was the most penalties I've ever seen in a game. I don't have the image right now in front of me, and I should have added this, but everyone's seen that meme of the field that's got like 30 yellow flags on it. That was this game. If you did not watch it and you were just looking for the highlights and didn't know anything that went on in the actual game itself, it was penalty after penalty after penalty. I think there was a stretch where we went like half a dozen to 10 plays in a row with penalties, from punts to kickoff, to punt return, and you name it. There was a penalty
Yeah.
for everything. I don't think I've ever seen a game with that many personal foul penalties or unsportsmanlike conduct, which none of them had any explanation because, of course, this ref crew is terrible.
right?
Or
Yeah, no
replay.
video
There were
review.
the headsets weren't working, the mics weren't working, the color commentator group was it was just all around. I've seen it on multiple podcasts already. All around, probably the worst production of a college football game I've ever seen. And I've seen plenty of D2, D3 games that have better broadcasts than what we saw last night. That was pitiful. It's an embarrassment to college football. It's an embarrassment to ESPN. Not surprised though. ESPN's kind of been crap the last year, if you ask me. They've let a lot of people go, and they're putting out these subpar performances in production. But what a wild game. I mean, it was from the start. There was penalties everywhere. You know, I think the funniest part of the game, we get to halftime, and Leipold's quick radio interview. You know, he's like, "We need to find a new crew at halftime." I don't know if it's possible, but I thought that was hilarious. Like when the coach says that, and he's probably going to get fined for it. But when the coach says that, you know it's bad. And it was on both sides. I mean, KU got the bulk of it, but it was penalties on both sides. It was all over. It was just rough. I don't know if I've ever watched a game where I'm just like, oh, can we go one play without the refs getting in here and slowing it down? It just took away a lot of the fun because this was a fun game. There were so many exciting, explosive plays from Jason Bean in this offense that we're, of course, going to get into. But the ref show throughout the game was a disaster. It was all the way through, start to finish. You know, there's the other angle of was Vegas trying to help the betting sharks by keeping this close with all the penalties. It was impossible for a while. But yeah, enough on that. Derek, let me kick it to you. Just what stood out to you most about this game? What was most exciting? You know, watching it as a fan, and this is why we like to bring you on, is to give you another fan perspective, not just ours, but just kind of take me through watching that game as a fan. What did you think?
I'm a numbers guy, and so I think numbers really tell a lot. I know they can be deceiving sometimes, but like 298 plus yard drives, that was huge for the offense. I mean, obviously we talked about the flags, so I just tweeted. I mean, it's just brutal. I mean, coming into the game, KU had 55 penalties all season, and they
almost got half of that in one game.
Right. I mean, it was just brutal. But despite that, I mean, Luke Grimm, he had 395 receiving yards coming into this game, and he gets 40% of that. in the bulk, I mean, talk about showing up. Yeah, we're definitely not worthy. I mean, Lawrence Arnold. I mean, just give it to him in the open field. He's gonna score a touchdown. Quentin Skinner.
Yeah, that high point back of the end zone, Randy Moss style, that's gonna be on so many highlight reels for years and years to come. That was phenomenal. That's the receivers out there were making plays that Chiefs fans just dream of and are never going to see with this current group we have. Sorry to go on a quick tangent there, but this receiving core was tremendous. Sorry, keep going.
No, and you know, obviously Jason Bean, last game. I mean, what more can we say about Jason Bean? I mean, almost a third of his completions were touchdowns.
6 touchdowns. Jason Bean sets a Big 12 conference record in a bowl game with 6 touchdowns. Could have had 7 if not for that one pick there. KU had 591 total yards of offense, nearly 450 passing yards. And I think the crazy thing is this is a team that runs the ball almost 200 yards a game. We still ran for 142, and it didn't feel like we ran the ball very well. But Bean was just unloading it. He was taking what the defense was giving him. Receivers were open all over the field. I mean, you name it, Skinner to Luke Grimm to Lawrence Arnold, even Fairchild, Jared Casey late there in the game. The receivers just dominated this UNLV defense. Granted, Bean got a lot of good protection for most of the game, which, you know, coming into this matchup, you know, I listed my headlines and things to look out for in my game preview. One of them was that offensive line with 2 different guys playing at right tackle and left tackle that don't normally do that. Losing Austin Booker on defense. No Andy Kotelnicki as your offensive coordinator. And I got to tell you guys, I don't think losing Andy Kotelnicki might be as bad as we might think. Now, granted, this is the same team. The coaching staff, Jim Zebrowski's been there all season with Andy, so he knows what they're running. I think the only thing that felt different is we passed the ball a lot more. We were way more effective throwing the ball than we were running. Some of that I think was because offensive line, you got new guys in there and had to work around that. But this was just a dominant performance on offense. And the crazy thing with that is, and of course we'll get into some Jason Bean talk, that's with 3 turnovers and a fumble that we didn't lose, but 4 potential turnovers there, and you still put up 49 points and look to dominate basically from start to finish. But yeah, just an incredible game all around.
Keegan, I got something. I know you probably got a list of things that you want to go through. We're going to go off script really quick. So
yeah, that's what
Jason
you do in a
Bean.
live. This is a live reaction, so this is just wherever you guys want to take it.
We're going off script. I need to pose a question, and I know I'll be laughed at for it, but I do not care because I think there's a legitimate discussion. I'm going to give you a hypothetical scenario. Let's just pretend really quick next year that Jalen Daniels has a decent year, but let's say it's like a repeat season where we have another 8-win season and another bowl win. Let's say that it's a repeat season where we could have done better, could have done worse, and it was with Jalen Daniels healthy the whole way. And if that happens next year, do we look back on Jalen Daniels versus Jason Bean and give any bit of a nod to Jason Bean as having being the better quarterback? Not, I know he's not regarded as the better quarterback, but man, did you see that game? I mean, he had more touchdowns, and granted, not as many yards, but that game last year in last year's bowl game went into triple overtime. Mm-hmm. So more touchdowns, less time on the clock. And I know he had 3 interceptions, but in those aside, it in a lot of ways, it started to look like a master class by Bean, to the point where I'm like, this kid deserves a statue outside the new stadium. So
let's dive into the Bean talk here then. I think if you were looking at just the statistics on paper, I think you could probably make that argument. To me, when I see the eye test, and I've said this throughout the season all year, our ceiling is still higher with Daniels at quarterback because he's got better decision-making. Bean had a great game. He threw for 450 yards, 6 touchdowns. A lot of those, the receivers were wide open. So if you miss a wide open receiver, then yes, you were a terrible quarterback. He did not miss. He was making all the throws. He also put some throws in some tight spots, had some 50-50 balls that basically all went our way. Overall, good game. But we still got the full Jason Bean experience with his poor decision-making when he rolls out and, 3 picks. 2 of those should have been avoided. I'll give you the one that he threw into the end zone, just kind of missed it there. But the other 2 were completely avoidable. Jalen Daniels doesn't really make those types of miscues, those missed reads, in my opinion. So I would still say, unless Daniels just had a poor season next year, I would still give the edge to Daniels as the better quarterback, the better potential outcome, and the higher ceiling. But yeah, Bean played really well. Like we said on this podcast multiple times, I've been very critical of him. I had a fan comment in our preview that it was not fair for me to be critical of him. And I was like, well, I think it is fair. I mean, we get the full teeter-totter experience with him. He has really good moments, and then he has moments where you're like, why? You just went on a 10 completion run that looked incredible, and then you go back-to-back possessions of poor decision-making and throw an interception. I'm not going to take that away from him because he still had a very solid season. He came in. This was a guy that had no expectation of playing football this year. He was done. His lasting memory was going to be overthrowing in the end zone to win us a bowl game last year. He was done. Coaching staff, players, whoever convinced him to come back, knowing he wasn't going to be the starter, knowing he'd be backing up the Big 12 preseason player of the year projection in Jalen Daniels. Obviously, the Daniels injury comes out of nowhere, and Bean is thrust back into what he's done the last few years, and he delivered. This season does not end the way it does without Jason Bean performing the way he did. In my opinion, and we want to get into this conversation, we can go ahead and do it now. In my opinion, I think Jason Bean's going to go into the Ring of Honor. I wanted to save that for a future episode, But I mean, you have to look at statistically, he's going to finish as a top 3 quarterback in multiple statistical categories. He's got the second most passing touchdowns in KU football history. Granted, that's not a great history because Todd Reesing is a huge outlier, more than doubled what Jason Bean threw in his career. But he's going to finish top 3 in touchdowns, passing yards, all these different categories. 2 bowl game appearances, 1 bowl game victory. He's going to, in my opinion, he's got to be considered for that Ring of Honor. There's plenty of other guys on this team too, which we'll save for another episode. But I think as much as I've been critical of him, it's the same conversation we had with David McCormick at KU basketball. 4-year guy, tremendously talented, so many bonehead moves here and there that just have you questioning. But the guy delivered us a national championship. He delivered in the clutch when it mattered the most. And that's really, at the end of the day, all that matters. Jason Bean delivered when it mattered the most. He put out a tremendous, tremendous game last night. One, I think that's going to give a good tape to some NFL teams to maybe at least bring him in for some workouts over the summer. And maybe he gets some camp invites and could make a practice squad or something. I'm not saying he's going to be an NFL quarterback, but I will say this. There was a lot of last night game where I'm watching him and I'm going, this is not that different from how Patrick Mahomes plays. I know that's a lofty comparison, and we've said that before, but the way he moves around, throws on the run, the guy's got a cannon. He's a tall, skinny quarterback, but he's ripped and he's wicked fast. But the guy's got a cannon. I mean, he had, I think, 3 or 4 60-yard pass plays where he's just hitting the guy in stride down the field. That's incredible. So props to Jason Bean. The man's got a legacy for sure. I think this year in general, he redeemed any negative talk that could have been out there for him. You know, not any player. There's no player that has a perfect resume. Jason Bean leaves. I said this in the Oklahoma game because we thought after that maybe Daniels would come back. But Jason Bean gets to cap off an insane career at KU, one that he probably played longer than he anticipated. But he leaves, at the peak that he could in a bowl victory in such an impressive, dominant performance. So I'll leave it at that for now. We'll do some more Jason Bean talk for sure. But the guy had an incredible game. Still would love to get some of those picks back, and I'd still like to see him get out of the pocket and run for a few first downs. But how about that 4th down, that 4th and 1? He had a wide open running lane. I don't know how, the angle on the TV was terrible because there was no cameras.
Yeah,
so who knows
see
how many yards he actually had. But instead of taking the easy first down, he just unloads a bomb downfield to LJ Arnold because he's wide open and walks in for a touchdown. I mean, how about just the stones, the gutsiness on that play to just let it rip? Because that's a play where you could easily just overthrow the guy and completely miss because you feel the pressure of converting right there. But man, just all around, I can't really say much negative outside of those picks. Just he played an incredible game.
Guys, we're talking about transfer quarterback, which is even more insane, right? And like I wrote in my notes, I mean, like you said, Keith, I mean, even though Jalen Daniels has the higher ceiling, Jason Bean has been the guy that's delivered. 2 bowl eligible wins, right? And Oklahoma State last year, Oklahoma this year, and he's been healthy, right? He's been the starter. Arguably, I mean, top 3 quarterback of all time in Kansas history. I mean, Todd Reesing, obviously, and then John Hadle, and then
Bean.
Jason Bean. I mean, just based on what
he might be. He's top 5, I think. I think you can argue that.
He has to.
Daniels can be there too. Daniels can be number 3.
That's what's even crazier. He's got at least one more year back where he can. I mean, as much as we're sitting here talking about Jason Bean having a great game and a great year, Jalen Daniels has if he can stay healthy, and that's a big question mark. But if he can stay healthy, he's got a whole year to put up even bigger numbers. I mean, Bean's numbers throughout the year weren't anything crazy. He only had like 2,400 passing yards. Now, I know he didn't play every single game, and we were a really good run team, so he didn't have to throw the ball. But Daniels is going to put up incredible numbers next year to compete with that, and he could still finish, top 3 in some of these categories. So it's just crazy to think. I think I tweeted it last night that 2 of KU's best quarterbacks in program history are on the same team. Now I know that's there's a lot of guys from the olden days that were really solid. Most Jayhawk fans that are alive now did not see a lot of those guys in their heyday. But the last 25 years, I mean, you've got next to Tyrese, and these are probably the two most talented quarterbacks we've had. Carter Stanley was on really, really terrible teams and played pretty well. But Jason Bean and Jalen Daniels at the same time, I don't think you could ask for a better 1-2 punch at quarterback. Obviously, we would like to see Daniels play more. But, who knows how the season goes if let's say Daniels was hurt in the offseason and we just knew the whole year Bean is the starting quarterback, how different the season could have gone. Maybe we sneak out a couple more wins there. But, yeah, all around impressive. I think the conversation, he's going to be in the conversation for Ring of Honor, just statistically. And then beating Oklahoma at home, one of the biggest wins in program history, and now winning KU's first bowl game in 16 years. So
I need a statue.
That's where it is. You want a statue? See, they don't.
I want a statue.
Teams don't do a lot of statues. I think KU's only got the 2 statues outside.
I want the fro and everything. I need it. I need it outside the new stadium. Let's build Jason Bean a statue, and then Jalen Daniels can do the same thing, if not better, next season, and he can have a statue right next to him. How about that?
I'm fine with that.
Leading us to the playoff, right? Leading us to the playoff.
Dude, it can happen. It can happen. Isn't it? It's expanded next year, right? So
yep, and we'll get into that conversation. Before we go any further, just real quick again, if you guys are checking this out right now on our YouTube live here, thank you so much for joining us. I know there's only a handful of you. We're still very appreciative of those of you that are watching. Feel free to leave any comments in here on YouTube, and we'll post a couple of them on the screen if they're appropriate. I know there isn't any comment section yet, but we'd love to get some of your thoughts as fans and hop in there. Again, you can follow us Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. A lot of stuff we're going to be doing on the podcast here over the next several months. There's just so much content to get into, from KU football, basketball, Chiefs, Royals, NBA, sports betting, you name it. There's a lot that we're going to get into. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching this live or you're watching this later, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast, send it to a friend, send it to a sports friend of yours that you think would like our content. We'd love to continue seeing this page grow. A little over 280 subscribers. Our goal is to get to 300 here in the next couple of days. So we need 18 of you to go subscribe. So all it takes is 5 seconds to do so. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Share it with a person that you think is a big time Chiefs, Royals, KU fan. Would love to get some more of you on our team here at the KC Sports Authority podcast. Okay, back to the game here. Let's talk about just talk about these receivers. You have 2 guys with 3 touchdowns. You have 2 guys go over 100 yards. You have Quentin Skinner do what he does, catch monster passes way down the field that look ridiculous. One of them, maybe it's questionable, probably could have got overturned, but it was
we don't talk about that
catch. But the guy continues to make big time throws down the field. 3 receivers that are all back next year, unless transfer portal comes calling and somebody offers more. But we would assume all 3 coming back. KU, we even said it. Luke Grimm didn't have an impressive season numbers wise, but it's because we ran the ball so effectively all year. You've got 3 targets that can be on the field at any given second, and we saw, I think, the full range of opportunity and just ability from these 3. Arnold's the big time play guy, goes up, makes a big time catch, back of the end zone, high points it, catches it in traffic. Luke Grimm apparently is a deep threat now, not just the slot guy that gets open on 3rd down and can squeeze by. You had 2 screenplays for touchdowns that both guys just I guess that's not really a word. Outmaneuvered their opponents with their athleticism to get into the end zone. Just a super impressive performance. There's not really, outside of me, like Desmond Briscoe, Marcus Henry years, this receiver trio might be one of the most effective. And that's kind of weird to say because we just haven't seen that in a long time here at KU. But just a dominant performance. I guess if you had to give the nod to one of the receivers, which of these 3 do you think had the more impressive performance, if any?
What do you think, Derek?
I gotta go with Luke Grimm.
Okay.
I think he 4 catches, 160 yards. He was obviously wide open for wide open. Anyone could have made that throw. But he took the screen pass for the first touchdown, right? And then he just they on Twitter it was the Randy Moss picture, right? when he scorched the Cowboys, right? Three catches, 123 yards, and 3 touchdowns, right? Grimm was very similar.
Basically the same stat line.
Right. I know Arnold had the highlight catch. He had more catches, but both receivers had 3 touchdowns coming into this game, and they matched that total both in the game, which is insane to me. So
That's wild.
I'll give the edge to Grimm, but Mason Fairchild, he had that huge third down conversion, right?
Yeah, and that was one of those where
big.
Bean's getting outside the pocket running, and he slings it back across, and you're like, oh no,
Right.
oh no, oh okay, great, you're great.
It's like, oh no, yes,
we're good.
Yeah. So, between those,
heck, even Trevor Wilson had that big catch down the field at kind of a pivotal moment, big time catch right in the defender's face, and got hit immediately. But yeah, this group of receivers, I think if anything, and again, maybe we'll save this for offseason talk too. I don't know if it's the difference between Andy Kotelnicki and what Jeff Grimes might bring or what Jim Zabrowski schemed up, but just seeing the way that KU used their receivers, I thought which was great to see, because the run game really wasn't that effective. Devin Neal does what he does best and takes a 1 yard loss, a 2 yard gain into a 5 or 6 yard gain, because the guy can hit any hole. He can make guys miss. And even when the running lanes weren't there, he found ways to still get 3 or 4 yards at a time. So when you weren't getting these big chunk plays on the ground, not till late in the game, you had to find ways to get guys open in the field, and holy cow, were they wide open. I don't know what they're doing over at KU to get these receivers going, but somebody needs to call one Arrowhead Lane, send them some game tape, and figure out how these college – and again, I know they're not going up against NFL defenses, but these guys were open all the time. They can go up and catch the ball. There's not a single player on the Chiefs lineup right now that would go make the catch that L.J. Arnold did in the back of the end zone. I don't believe there's a single guy in this team that could do that. And these guys were making it look effortlessly. They were just all over the field. Bean was picking the guys at the right time. I know he forced a couple throws here and there, but his deep ball was fantastic. That's the one advantage we always said he had over Jalen Daniels was his deep ball accuracy. Jason Bean's got a fantastic deep ball. Jalen Daniels didn't have to do that a whole lot because of his running dynamic and the way he reads defenses and can pick guys apart. But just it was an all-out juggernaut offensively for a while. That was just real impressive to see, which also gives you a lot of excitement going into next year that this offense, who now is returning basically everybody, Jalen Daniels, we're assuming Jalen Daniels is healthy. But even the new look offensive line, for the most part, all those guys half those guys are back. But Calvin Clements, the true freshman from Lawrence, Kansas, out of Free State High School, looked pretty solid in his debut. He is a mammoth of a college tackle. He's like 6'7", 6'8". He's like the tallest tackle on the team. Armaj Adams Reed, as the play-by-play person kept calling him. I'm sorry to go on a tangent here again. If you're calling a college football game, and I know I've never heard of either of these analysts ever before, never seen them, you got to do your homework. Like, you've got the roster right in front of you. How are you not prepared for the game you're calling? They did that over and over and over, and nobody corrected them. Nobody's on a headset telling them, "Hey, stupid, you're saying it wrong. Get the name right." Anyway, but Armaj Reed Adams is back. No, I'm not. It's a low budget production. But most of that offensive line's going to be back. You lose Mike Nowitzki, which is going to be tough because he's an anchor on that O-line with his leadership. But all the receivers back. You get the announcement right before kickoff that Devin Neal has told coaching staff he's going to be back for 2024. Highshaw sounds like he'll be back unless he decides he wants to go in the portal and find a opportunity that's a larger role. You've got most everybody on this team coming back. So that gave me a lot of excitement to see that we can replicate this again next year. And it's not just a one-hit wonder. And even with Kotelnicki gone, that we'll still have the pieces to go out and perform. How about any other highlights or things? I mean, we haven't talked about the defense much. I know they still gave up a lot of points. A lot of those were off of the picks and the turnovers in short field. What were your guys' thoughts on this defense without seeing Austin Booker or Gage Keys on the defensive line?
I think we were more locked in than expected, for sure. I thought we were well prepared in that sense. We had we had a month off, so there was a little bit of rust. But and of course the announcing crew wanted to pin the rust as the explanation as to why we're getting all those flags, and I'm like, I don't know. I think it's just the officiating. It's that bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we came out a little bit more prepared than I would have expected. What I was really happy with was just overall, they found ways to get us or get our offense back on the field when we needed it the most. I think. I mean, yeah, UNLV went on a bit of a run and made it scary, just a little bit. But then we ended up locking in late when it mattered the most. So, hats off to them. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how you win
after
games.
the first drive, I mean, they really dialed in. They were on the line of scrimmage quick. They were getting to. I mean, De Jesus guy. Wow, he was fast. But they were after that first drive or two. I mean, the linebackers, the corners, the safeties playing up. Everybody was quick to the ball. They played team tackling, I thought, pretty well. I think they turned a lot of plays that could have been large chunk plays into 3 or 4 yard gains with just some surefire tackling.
Well, they set the edge, right?
Yeah.
I think they did a much better job after that first drive, setting the edge, not letting De Jesus or Ricky White, on those stream passes just go outside and get the sideline. And so, but by doing that, they opened up the gaps in the middle. And so UNLV gashed KU several times by doing that. But when it mattered, I think the defense played well. I mean, I think one of the plays of the game on the defensive side was Kobe's sack, right? They were driving, they had just scored, right? To cut it down to 4. And then Kobe Bryant, they just dial up that corner blitz out of nowhere. And, it's second and long, right?
Yeah,
And I
that
think
couldn't have
That
come at
was
a better
huge.
time too, because we weren't
right.
getting that was the only negative thing I had to say about defenses. The D line didn't really get a lot of pressure. Now the way they were calling plays and scheming things out, their quarterback was on the move quite a bit, so it's harder to get that kind of pressure. But without Gage Keys and Austin Booker, you could definitely feel their presence being lost. So getting that timely sack and then mixing that in with just solid coverage for the most part. I mean, was it Ricky White had a decent game, but he didn't like go super crazy, like 7 for 97. He had a couple chunk plays. The rest of them were, 6-7 yard gains. He had the one big 37 yarder at a crucial time. But outside of that, I mean, the corners played well. Kobe Bryant, of course, had his pick. Craig Young almost got a pick. I think there's another tipped one that we almost took away. I think all around defensively, Brian Borland's scheme was solid. They were locked in. I mean, we've talked about it throughout the season too. This team is very disciplined when it comes to tackling. Rich Miller, Kenny Logan, even the corners and Dotson and Bryant, they're just really solid at tackling the ball. Heck, Marvin Grant, I think he had a huge game. There's a couple plays I can think of right off the top of my head where DeJesus is coming on the jet sweep or pass screen in the bubble, and Marvin Grant just comes flying out of nowhere at the safety position. And he was able to do that because the D-line and the linebackers were setting the edge, like you're saying there, and making the guy have to go out wider, and then Grant's just there to pounce on him. Kalen Gervin, too, had a couple big-time tackles out of the defensive backfield. But, yeah, I thought the defense actually played really well considering they gave up 36 points. If you take away those three interceptions, maybe this scores 62-17. Who knows? It could be very, very different. I mean, Bean was on a roll. If you have to think if he doesn't throw those 3 picks, those are all touchdowns on those drives. So 3 more touchdowns, yeah, or at least field goal attempts. Just a fun win. I think this really it's great for the program. It's great for the fan base. You finish the season with a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement going into the next year. Stadium's getting revamped. It's basically torn apart right now. We don't really know where games are going to be played yet next year. Transfer portal's already been big for us. Donors are throwing money left and right at KU to do all these great things. The program's just up and up. And I think what's just exciting for Jayhawk fans is this is only year 3. We figured and we hoped Leipold would get us there. He's a program builder everywhere he's been. He's won at every level. I don't think anybody expected it to be this quick. You go from 0 wins to 9 wins in 3 seasons, and you were knocking on the door for 10, 11 wins and on a conference title appearance in year 3. And that's just where we're getting started. You already said it. The college football playoffs are expanding to 12 teams next year. The Power 5 schools, the Power 5 conferences, the champion of that league gets an automatic bid, and then 6 at-large bids. KU is good enough on paper, roster-wise, to compete with Texas and Oklahoma losing, even with some of these other new schools coming in like Utah, Arizona State. KU is going to be in a prime position moving forward to be at the top of this conference with teams like K-State, Oklahoma State, even teams like Texas Tech who are always slinging it out. So I think there's just a lot of excitement. Getting that win just really stamped the season. It sends us into the offseason super excited about what's to come. We have a big-time recruiting class coming in that I recapped a few weeks ago. If you haven't checked it out, you can go back and check that one out. We'll dive into it more as we get into spring ball here in a few months. But just a lot of excitement around the team, around the program. Leipold and company are doing some tremendous things. And if they can do 9 wins this year with an unhealthy Jalen Daniels and having to put in a freshman a few times here at quarterback and then rolling with Jason Bean, imagine what we can do next year with a pretty similar team. I know losing Austin Booker is going to be big, and we'll have to figure out how to replace him. But KU's in a prime position next year to go from 9 to 11 wins and compete for a Big 12 championship and potentially be in a college football playoff. And I don't think anyone imagined that would be the case heading into 2024.
We can absolutely do that. I mean, 12 teams getting in. I'll be darned if we have a healthy Jalen Daniels all of next season and we don't get in. Like, we are that good. With all the people that we're returning, we are that good. And we can talk about, like you said, we talk about next year in a future podcast recording. But, man, like, guys, like, let's soak this in, right? Because we have a bowl win. We have a bowl win for the first time in like 15 years or whatever it is.
2008 Insight Bowl against Minnesota is the last one.
We should be doing backflips. If I could backflip, I would.
Yeah, I'm not that athletic. I can't do that.
I can't do it. But like that's a really big accomplishment. Like a bowl win is I mean that's a trophy. I look, and if any other fan base wants to make fun of us for being happy about our bowl win, then screw them. I mean,
yeah, K-State fans are already trolling like usual. Iowa State fans are trolling like usual. Both those programs have been solid the last 6-7 years with their new coaches, but only each of those programs have only had 1 season with 9 wins. So it's not like we've done anything crazy different. I know we've been bad for most of those other years, but to see us do it so quickly and to know that we're not going anywhere the next year, I think K-State fans and Iowa State fans need to slow it down because they need to be more concerned about their own conference or their own team winning. And Iowa State needs to figure out how to get guys on the field that aren't going to be sports betting and getting kicked out, which is funny because we took one of their tight ends who got suspended for that, but we'll save that for later. But yeah, a lot of excitement going into the offseason. Again, we'll dive into that more. KU could potentially have 2 guys competing for Big 12 Player of the Year with Jalen Daniels and now Devin Neal coming back. And again, I'll spend a whole nother episode. We'll talk about the whole Devin Neal coming back and what he has to gain, what he has to lose as far as his future. But the guy's coming back to break records and to continue winning, coming back to break records, potentially playing a college football playoff and cement himself as one of the greatest Jayhawk football players of all time, in my opinion. Well, again, we'll save that for another episode. We'll get into that later. But anything else on this game that you guys want to touch on from anything?
What do you guys think of Kenny Logan? I mean,
he's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Spectacular, right?
He wins defensive MVP of the game. Yeah. He gets to cap off his tremendous career and legacy at KU. Yeah, I think Kenny Logan, again, maybe we'll spend another. I'm going to compile a lot of highlights this offseason. I'm going to be making a lot of videos of some of these guys that are leaving the program and guys that are coming back too. But Kenny Logan kind of started all this. He comes in under the Les Miles era, doesn't know anything but losing and poor culture and poor teammates. Could have gone anywhere, could have left, decides to stay for year 1 of Leipold. And you can see there were frustrations between him and the coaching staff and kind of, mixing together and trying to figure out how to play for a new coach. But he stuck around. and he helped build this new culture that we have with guys like Rich Miller, Mike Nowitzki, and some of the other guys that have already moved on that were familiar with Lance Leipold. But Kenny Logan, I mean, he's another guy. Again, we'll talk about this more depth in another episode too. But he's another guy that screams Ring of Honor for me. I think he's got to be up there, next to a guy like Darryl Stuckey as one of the best safeties we've seen. The guy just bleeds crimson and blue. He's been everything to this program the last few years. We're nowhere today without him. Just being able to see him cap off his career and this season he's had with the bowl victory just really shows you the resilience of a guy like him, how sticking it through pays off. And I think, again, he's another guy that I would fully expect to see at the next level. I think he can bring that same attitude to just about any NFL team. But yeah, tremendous game by Kenny Logan. He's everywhere all the time. The guy plays hurt all the time too and doesn't complain about it. He just shows up day in and day out and puts a stamp every single play. So shout out Kenny Logan. Tip our cap to you. Tremendous game, tremendous season, tremendous career, and you have a legacy that will live a long time.
I love it. Yeah, I think this game, it ended the way that it needed to for a lot of guys on the roster this year. And I just got to say, we were talking about Lance and just a little bit ago and how good of a job he's done and what little amount of time he's had at KU. And, I'm old enough to look back at the last decade plus of Kansas football and see a lot of great talent that was just wasted, I think. That was really just wasted by a bad coach. And I have to kind of check myself a little bit because back in the day, I used to say, look, I mean, we've got a bad coach, but come on. Make a play, you're the guy on the field, get the job done, and we never got it done. But I was wrong. I mean, there's so much power in having a good coach, and I have not realized it until I finally got a good coach. So, I mean, Lance Leipold, man, I just hope we keep giving him the bag because, I mean, I hope he stays and
he deserves every penny. Yeah, he deserves every
Didn't
penny.
he say that he wants to stay here and retire?
Oh yeah, he's made it sound like this is his last stop.
Yeah, right. He doesn't want to move. And just to go off of what JB has said, I mean, this caps off year 3, right, of Lance Leipold. 17 wins, okay, in 3 years. In the past, from 2010 to 2020, KU won 21 games total. So
that's
that
so
shows that number alone shows the impact of Lance Leipold.
And that's just 3 seasons.
3 seasons.
And we're just getting started, like we said.
Correct. And this is the 6th 9-win season for Kansas football.
I think you have to go all the way back to 2003. And then before that, 1995. And then before that, it's like 69 or 71 or something.
So
it's not something we do that often.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, we always talk about KU and, how futile the football program is. UNLV, they haven't won a bowl game in 23 years. This is their 3rd bowl appearance in 23 years. So they actually have a similar trajectory as KU the past 4 years.
Yeah, and they're kind of similar spot as we are too with Barry Odom coming in. This is year 1 under him, and they were in their conference title. Now, I know that conference isn't crazy, but UNLV at one point was a top 25 team that a couple things go their way. They could be on the next year, could be on the outside looking into a college football playoff appearance. So very, very solid opponent, and one that we'll see again next year, which is the weird part that we'll see them, the first couple weeks of the season, little mini rivalry going on already with a lot of the bounce back and forth. And of course, with all those penalties, the fight there at the end. Yeah. The Kobe Bryant flop. I still don't know who. They said DJ Withers got flagged. I didn't even see him anywhere there. I don't know what actually happened there. Maybe it was on the field. It wasn't even. But yeah, I mean, they've got this little rivalry going already. There's a lot of heat. I mean, who does? You do not see that often even in blowout games and close games where the guy's going back to knee and the guy just comes flying around the edge trying to rip his head off and still gets to him. Like that just you just don't. That's just terrible. I mean, that's like the Marcus Smart, never mind. I don't want to get started on all that, but yeah, that was terrible way to end it, but it kind of capped off the game. It was a physical game. Guys were chirping all night. There was so much back and forth talk. You could see it on the field. You could see it on the sidelines. Unfortunately, the broadcast crew didn't get to see any of it because they didn't know what was going on, nor did they have any replays to look at. But yeah, it was a crazy physical game. I'm sure that's going to spill over some into the matchup coming up this year. But yeah, Barry Odom apologized, of course. But yeah, UNLV similar spot as we are moving forward. They've got a great coach over there. Didn't perform at Missouri, of course, but I mean, how do you expect to take over a program like that after a guy like Gary Pinkel and deliver in the SEC? But anyway, enough talk on them. Yeah, anything else you guys want to wrap up with on this game? Like I said, we'll do more off-season talk here over the next couple of weeks. I've got a couple people at KU I'm hoping to get on. One or two players that I'm actually trying to figure out how to get on here right now over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll get some more insight close to the program. But yeah, anything else you guys want to talk about or dive into before we get out of here?
I was gonna ask Derek a question. You're still a student, Derek. I'm kind of far removed from campus. I graduated 2014, so give me the vibe. Give me the vibe on campus, man. I know it's break right now, but
and basketball season. But the fact that we're sitting here on December 27th talking about the excitement of our football program and not just skipping into basketball right away is telling.
I want to know if the student fan base is actually understanding of how big of a moment that was, that we just won a bowl game and we had a season like we did. Because like I said earlier, I've seen way too many seasons that were less than subpar, that were bottom of the barrel bad. And yeah, I mean, what's the vibes? Give us the good word before we head out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the students now are probably a little too young to remember, the 08, 09 team, 07, 08 teams, right? So, they probably know about it and they probably know how bad it was, but just I mean, it's crazy that we talk about consistency now with KU football, right? And so, KU's always been known as a basketball school. Now it's starting to become a football school, right? People are saying it's a football school now. So
that's right.
And so it's just amazing to see that. And I think a lot of students love it. Obviously, it's a great college town, and football is football. So it's great. It's wonderful, and it's obviously a great segue into basketball season. And
the fact that you can be excited about both at the same time as a KU fan is fantastic, because I've never really, maybe 3 seasons in my lifetime, have experienced the excitement of both at the same time.
Right. And unless you were directly part of that, right? If you were a student in 06, 07, 08, right? Like it's hard to relate to that, otherwise than being a fan or being a local growing up. But yeah, I think there's a huge buzz around campus, and, the football team's here to stay. And obviously they finally got the coach right. So I'm just stoked, amazed, proud, all the superlatives that can be used to describe, I mean, I just can't believe, I've only been here 4 years, but, we won a national championship in basketball, football resurgence, volleyball. It's been wonderful.
Women's basketball off to
a great women's season. Basketball.
WNIT champs. Let's go.
Right. I went to the game on Wednesday against Nebraska. They were 9-2. We made them 9-3. So
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, what a time to be a Jayhawk. So,
the program top in the Big 12. If you ask me, we now have the opportunity to compete at the highest level in both of the major sports, in men's basketball, men's football. Of course, the rest of the program, baseball's on the up and up, golf's on the up and up. Track team's been incredible. Volleyball's been there for years. Swimming, anything you name it with Kansas athletics right now. We have just a tremendous tremendous university athletic program that's just on the up and up. But let's wrap it up there. Don't want to go too much longer, especially since there's not many of you sitting here watching this with us. But those of you that have watched it, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Hopefully those of you that weren't here live, you'll come back and check this out later, which I know will sound weird hearing this at the end of the episode since you didn't watch it live, but you get the point. If you haven't done so yet, again, hit that subscribe button below. We've got a lot of great stuff still to come. KU's got a basketball game this weekend, Wichita State and Kansas City, and then it starts Big 12 play. So our next KU basketball episode coming up here in the next couple of days, it'll probably be after the Wichita State game, but we'll have a preview of Big 12 play, just kind of dive into the Big 12 portion of the season, give KU's outlook, look at some of the other top contenders in the team around the conference, dive into, player of the year talk with Hunter Dickinson, Kevin McCullough. KU's got 2 guys that could be first team All-Americans, 2 guys for National Player of the Year, 2 guys for Big 12 Player of the Year, all sorts of great stuff there. Chiefs, it's been frustrating. Not going to lie. It's been frustrating. It's been hard to talk Chiefs other than being upset. So Chris and CJ haven't done a whole lot there the last couple of weeks. We're just really getting more geared towards let's get to the playoffs and then we'll dive into playoff talk. So they might have some stuff coming up here soon. We got some sports betting stuff we want to get into. NBA talk. There's all sorts of stuff. So if you haven't done so yet, again, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. If you guys as Jayhawk fans ever have anything you want us to discuss on the podcast, any ideas for episodes, content, questions, anything like that, hit us up. Send those over to us. If you're watching here on YouTube, you can always leave us a comment and we'll get back to you. Like I said, in the last couple episodes, merchandise is coming soon. And those that won the free shirts, like I said, we'll get into that once I know when our next shirt order is going to be. JB's repping one right now. The merch store is coming. A lot of stuff's out of stock right now because it's winter holidays. I'll launch that once stuff's back in stock. But yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. Fellas, thanks for sticking around with me tonight. I'll get this up here soon in podcast form for everyone to go back and check out. But KU football caps off the season, 9-win season, wins the Guaranteed Rate Bowl 49-36 over to UNLV off of Jason Bean's 450 yards, 6 touchdown performance to send them off into the sunset and cap off his legacy. And of course, like I said, we'll talk more KU football here in the off season and get all the rest of that. So until we chat with you guys, again, thanks for joining us. And as always, rock chalk.
Rock chalk.
Rock chalk.